Have you ever got a gift that feels more like a slap in the face than a present? Last Christmas, my parents gave me a book called How to Grow Up. That was it. No note, no joke. Just that smug, pastel-colored paperback wrapped up in shiny paper, like it was something to celebrate. Meanwhile, my younger sister Sabrina unwrapped first-class tickets to Rome. Not the economy, not a voucher. Actual date-stamped round-trip tickets to Italy. That moment, it wasn't loud, but it was seismic. Like years of being the reliable one finally collapsed into a single crystal-clear message. You're not the favorite. You're the fallback. And it wasn't the book. It wasn't even the tickets. It was everything that moment represented. It was the years I spent showing up, babysitting on weekends, wiring money when Sabrina's tuition was short, helping mom organize every birthday and holiday while never getting so much as a thank you card. I'd been this background character in my own life, propping everyone up while quietly letting my own needs slide further and further down the list. Every family group chat, every emergency phone call, every unspoken expectation, I answered them all like it was my job. And in their eyes, maybe it was. The thing is, I never thought of myself as someone who needed praise or recognition. I liked being helpful. I liked knowing I could be counted on. But there's a fine line between dependable and disposable. And when that book landed in my lap like some kind of moral indictment, I realized just how invisible I'd become. Not just to them, but to myself. So when I saw those tickets, and when I held that book, heavy in the way guilt is heavy, I didn't say anything. Not right away. But something in me shifted. It was like I suddenly woke up inside a role I never auditioned for, and I started asking myself questions I hadn't dared to voice out loud. Why am I always the helper? What happens if I stop? Would anyone even care, or just get mad? That was the beginning of something I didn't know I had the strength to start, a total reevaluation of what it meant to be the good daughter, the dependable sister, the one who never caused waves. I was about to find out exactly how uncomfortable people get when the person they count on stops playing along. And once I took that first step back, there was no unseeing the imbalance. No pretending that love and usefulness were the same thing. I was done being everyone's safety net. It was time to find out who I could be when I stopped living for everyone else. Looking back, I can't pinpoint the exact moment when Sabrina became the star and I became the support crew, but it happened early. She was always louder, flashier, more dramatic. She got solo parts in school plays, special permission to skip, chores for soccer practice, and the latest clothes while I wore hand-me-downs to be practical. When she cried, the house went quiet. When I cried, I was told to be strong. That was the beginning of the divide. She was the event, and I was the one who cleaned up after it. At first, I thought this was normal. Every family has roles, right? But over time, those roles hardened into something more like assignments. Sabrina was the achiever. I was the helper. When she forgot her homework, I stayed up helping her redo it. When she had a meltdown before prom, I was the one sewing her backup dress at midnight. I became the extra set of hands no one thanked, just expected. And the more I did, the more they leaned in. They called me mature, selfless, giving. But under all those compliments was a silent contract. As long as you keep helping, we'll keep calling you good. They laughed at my decision to become a preschool teacher, said I had the patience of a saint, but the tone wasn't admiration. It was dismissal. Like I'd chosen something small and soft and unimpressive. They called Sabrina brilliant, ambitious, world-ready. They called me sweet, reliable, and available. As if being grounded and present was somehow a flaw. No one ever asked me what I dreamed of. No one imagined I could want something for myself. Beyond the role of the assistant, holidays were the worst. I'd be in the kitchen with my mom while Sabrina floated from room to room like a guest of honor. I organized, served, fixed things, and every time I tried to step back even just a little, someone would hand me another task with a smile. You're so good at this. You just get things done. I didn't realize until much later that being good at something doesn't mean you owe it to people. That just because you can doesn't mean you should. Growing up in that house felt like I was quietly auditioning for approval I never fully received. Every achievement of mine was nice, but hers were incredible. I wasn't jealous. I was invisible. And over time, invisibility becomes internal. You start to believe maybe your dreams aren't that important. Maybe being the helper is just who you are. Until one day, something cracks. And you realize you were never just a helper. You just stopped asking to be anything else. The first thing I stopped doing was babysitting. It wasn't loud or dramatic. I just didn't respond to Sabrina's last-minute text about watching Maya while she had dinner plans. No explanation, no guilt-ridden apology, just silence. And for the first time in a long time, I felt the smallest flicker of power. It wasn't revenge. It was a relief. A boundary, soft but solid. I didn't need to explain myself. I had simply decided that my time was mine again. Then came the money. Sabrina texted me saying her stipend from grad school had been delayed, and she needed help covering rent. Just this once. It was always just this once. I didn't say no. I didn't say yes. I said, I can't help this time. And I left it at that. My hands were shaking when I sent it. I kept checking my phone like I'd said something cruel, but the truth is it wasn't cruel, it was just new. And new feels threatening to people who benefit from the way things are. What most people don't realize is that change doesn't start with a grand speech or a blowout fight. It starts in the quiet. In the pause where you used to say yes and now say nothing. In the text you ignore, the favor you don't offer, the task you gently put down. I didn't storm out. I didn't declare war. I just stopped volunteering for a role I never asked for. And that subtle shift, that quiet rebellion, it was more powerful than I expected. There was no applause. No one called to say they were proud of me. In fact, things got weird fast. But for that brief window of time before the fallout hit, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Space. Mental space. Emotional space. The kind of space that makes you think, what if I don't go back? What if this is just the start? And that thought, that maybe I didn't have to be the fixer, the wallet, the always available one, that's when I knew I wasn't just tired. I was done. Not angry, not bitter. Just done with a version of myself I'd outgrown. I was stepping into something unknown. And for once, I wasn't asking for permission. The silence didn't last long. When I didn't answer Sabrina's texts, she escalated, quickly. First came the guilt. Maya misses you. I don't know what I did to deserve this. Then the martyr lines. I guess I'll figure it out on my own like I always do. It was ironic, really, because for most of her life, she never had to figure out much on her own. That was my job. But now that I wasn't playing along, she had to confront the version of herself without a built-in safety net, and she didn't like it. My parents were next. They didn't ask why I was pulling back. They didn't ask how I was doing. They just asked, why are you being so selfish? That word, selfish, hit like a slap. After decades of bending over backwards, the moment I prioritized myself, I was selfish. Not burned out, not overwhelmed, not human, just selfish. They didn't say it with anger. That would have been easier. They said it with disappointment, like I'd failed them. Like I was letting the whole family down by refusing to keep things running smoothly. It didn't stop there. A few weeks later, I found out someone had called my job anonymously, questioning whether I was mentally stable enough to work with kids. I have no proof it was someone in the family, but the timing wasn't subtle. The message was clear. Step out of line, and we will remind you of the cost. Suddenly, the people who once depended on me were casting me as unstable, unreliable, even dangerous. All because I stopped saying yes. It was surreal. I'd always been the steady one, the calm in the chaos. Now, I was being treated like a threat. And the most twisted part of me wanted to fix it. Apologize. Smooth it over. Not because I'd done anything wrong, but because being disliked, especially by your own family, hurts in a way that logic can't reach. I had to keep reminding myself, their anger didn't mean I was wrong. It meant I was no longer useful on their terms. People don't like when you rewrite your role in a story they've already decided for you, and they'll use whatever tools. They have to pull you back into character. Guilt, shame, rumors, silence. But I'd finally learned the difference between being loved and being needed. And I wasn't going back. It started small. I threw a birthday party for Maya, not because Sabrina asked, but because I wanted to. I picked the theme, baked the cake, and set up games with my own little twist. And for the first time, it felt like a gift, not a job. I wasn't doing it to earn points or keep peace. I was doing it because I genuinely loved that kid. And seeing her light up, not because everything was perfect, but because I was fully present. That reminded me what joy used to feel like before obligation drained it from me. The difference was subtle, but real. I wasn't just doing things for others anymore. I was choosing how and when I showed up. And that choice made all the difference. I started reconnecting with friends I hadn't seen in years. I said yes to invites, signed up for a pottery class, went to local events without needing to check in with anyone first. For once, my calendar had my name at the top. I wasn't squeezing myself into leftover time. That's when the idea for the kids' party business started forming. It wasn't sudden, like a lightning bolt. It was more like I kept finding myself, daydreaming about it, crafting little experiences that were joyful, creative, meaningful. I already had the skills. I already had the heart for it. What I didn't have, until then, was the belief that I deserved to build something of my own. Not for the family, not as a side gig, but as a life. So I got to work. Slowly, without fanfare. I built a simple website, ordered some supplies, tested party concepts with neighbors and friends. Word spread, and soon, weekends were booked. It wasn't just income, it was identity. People saw me not as a backup, but as a creator, a builder, a person with vision. And more importantly, I started seeing myself that way too. For the first time in my adult life, I felt full, not from praise or attention, but from alignment. My life wasn't being drained by everyone else's emergencies. I had carved out something that felt solid, joyful, and mine. I wasn't anyone's support act anymore. I was building my own show. It happened in the hallway of my parents' house, right after dinner. Mom pulled me aside, dramatic as ever, eyes wide with concern, but voice sharp with judgment. "You've changed," she said, like it was a diagnosis. "You used to care about this family." I didn't raise my voice. I didn't cry. I just looked her in the eye and said, "I still care. I just care about myself now too." And that was it. No long speech, no list of grievances, just a boundary drawn clean in the middle of a moment that used to flatten me. She wasn't ready for that. She said I was being cold, that I was throwing everything away. But I wasn't. I was finally choosing which pieces to keep. I told her I wouldn't be manipulated anymore. That being the quiet, helpful daughter had cost me too much. That I wasn't angry. I was done pretending it hadn't hurt. And that from now on, if they wanted me around, it had to be with respect. Not orders, not guilt. Respect. The room fell quiet. She didn't scream. She didn't apologize. She just nodded stiffly and walked away. And honestly, I was okay with that. Because for the first time in my life, I had said everything I needed to say without folding, without trying to soften it so someone else could feel more comfortable. I wasn't asking for understanding. I was stating a fact. I don't play that role anymore. In the weeks that followed, things didn't magically get better. The distance stayed. Some family members called less. Others sent texts that felt like they were testing the waters. But I didn't chase. I didn't explain myself in 10 paragraphs. I let them sit with it. Because that's part of the process too, letting people feel the weight of your absence when they've taken your presence for granted. Sabrina didn't speak to me for a while. Then one day, she dropped Maya off for a visit. Not because she expected me to watch her, but because Maya asked to see me. That mattered. Not out of obligation, out of love. And that's the only connection I was willing to keep. The ones built on honesty, not expectation. On choice, not guilt. These days, my life is quieter, but it's mine. The business is thriving in a way I never expected. Parents book me months in advance. Kids run up to me with wide eyes and messy hands ready for glitter and games. I get thank you cards with crayon hearts and shaky handwriting. It's not flashy. It's not corporate, but it's joyful. And more than that, it's enough. I don't talk to my parents every day. Sometimes we go weeks without a call. The conversations are polite now, careful, but they know I won't be guilted or baited. The dynamics have shifted. I'm not chasing approval anymore. I show up when I choose to. And when I don't, I no longer drown in shame. I just live. Peacefully. On purpose. Sabrina and I, we coexist. There's still tension, still unspoken stuff. But Maya and I have our own bond now. We bake cookies, paint, and make up silly dances. I get to love her without resentment because I'm not being forced into it anymore. That choice changed everything. It made the love feel lighter, more real. Not a duty, just something I enjoy, freely and fully. Sometimes I wonder if I should have done it sooner. Set the boundaries, spoken up, walked away from the roles that never fit me. But honestly, I think it had to happen this way. I had to get tired enough to stop apologizing. I had to feel the weight of it all before I could put it down for good. There's no perfect timing when it comes to claiming your life. There's just the moment you finally say, no more. And now when I look at my days, the messy ones, the quiet ones, the deeply satisfying ones, I see a life that reflects who I really am. Not who they needed me to be. Not who I was taught to be. Just me. Standing in my own space. Writing my own story. No longer waiting to be invited into the spotlight. Because it turns out, I was never meant to be background. I was just waiting for the right moment to take center stage. And if you're wondering whether it's worth it, to risk the fallout, to feel the loneliness, to draw the line, I'll tell you this. The peace on the other side, it's real. And once you taste it, you'll never settle for crumbs again. So if this sounds like you, maybe this is your moment too. And when it comes, don't flinch. Take the step, rewrite your role, and never, ever apologize for finally choosing yourself.